Hey, everybody. Welcome to Pod Save America. I'm John Lovett. Today on the show, I sat down with Marc Maron to talk about the end of his podcast, to talk about his comedy special, talk about politics, Trump, Theo, Jerry Seinfeld, Bill Maher. I think Janine Garofalo came up very briefly. We covered a lot of ground about the right, the left, life and death. It was a great conversation. Producer Austin said it was a funny conversation and one of the darkest conversations we've had. And you'll decide how right that is. But it was really great. And here it is. Hi, thanks for being here.
You're welcome. Nice to be here. I've admired your work from afar, my friend.
Oh, that's so nice to hear. What about up close?
Well, I'm going to see how that goes.
Okay. When you were on Love It or Leave It in 2017, I went back and listened to it, and my takeaway had nothing to do with you. You were there, but I was mostly listening to how I sounded.
Sure.
And it was one of the first shows we did.
Yeah.
And it was which was one of the first times I've been doing a show on a stage, and I'm still getting the hang of it. And I remember when you came on, I really felt you just not annoyed at me, but like, you're like,
yeah.
Okay.
Sure. Well, I think that's a common experience for many people with me.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's real. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's the situation itself. It might not have had anything to do with you.
Mm-hmm.
It could have been a broader, like, what is this? Why are we here at the Improv? It could have been a lot of things. I wouldn't take it personally.
No, I didn't.
Oh,
I didn't at the time. I actually appreciated it because I felt like you needed to be won over. Like you've been doing this a long time.
Yeah.
And you think we're gonna talk, and I felt you like alpha dogging me a little bit.
Oh,
but not in a bad way. It was fine. But in watching you do interviews, here's what I took from it, which is when you're with somebody you genuinely like, you will not laugh as much, but you'll sometimes throw a pity laugh at someone who's trying their best, who you don't care for, and I wasn't getting that.
Oh, I think what happens is, like, in terms of alpha dogging, my alpha dog is pretty shallow.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you know me, if you know my heart instinctively, I'm a pretty mushy guy.
Yeah.
And I think what happens with people I do know is I'll laugh a lot if they get going. Like if I'm on with a couple of with a comic and we have an understanding, I love to laugh and I love to be, taken to task a bit. I like to bust balls. I don't. And if I have that rapport with somebody, I think it becomes pretty apparent who I am. With people in terms of pity laughs, there's an old radio habit. I don't know if people who started in podcasting, but it seems to have, there is a radio laugh that you do out of politeness, and it's instinctual. And I think after a certain point, you may not know the difference between that and a real laugh, but it is an acknowledgement. It's not always pity. It's just saying like, yeah, okay, yeah, you did it.
Got to fill the
did
space
the thing.
to get to the next
Well,
part
I mean,
of
if it's
it.
funny, it's funny, but I think people know when I'm really laughing. And I think that in terms of alpha dogging, I think I just, I get a little kind of like stand up, dickish.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not full power play. It's just sort of a defiance. I'm defying you to bring me down a notch.
But you're setting a bar for if you're going to want to have a conversation.
Sure,
you're going to have to bring something.
Yeah, I don't know.
You can't just show up empty-handed.
Sure, I mean, yeah, because I can talk probably too much if I'm allowed to.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mind it. This is the first time I've done sort of a run of guesting in a long time over the last month or so.
Yeah, no, I noticed that. I feel like you've done every podcast, and I assume what's left after this is maybe like the Geico Caveman. Is that what's after this?
Is he doing one?
Yeah. I think you're gonna hit that. Maybe
I did a couple.
That Petco dog.
Sure. Yeah, I don't think I'll do that. I was kind of strategic in what I wanted to do for reasons that I had. Some of them were not the reasons that were sort of interpreted.
Mm-hmm.
I learned recently that people are going to assume they know why you did things or frame why you did things in their particular context. And I know why I did things. And it's very odd to come up against these type of people where they're like, you did that because of this. I'm like, I wasn't even thinking that.
What's an example of that?
Well, I mean, for instance, that there was this notion that, I did a lot of the comedy podcasts, the more bro-ish ones that, I would do or get on. specifically to take them to task. And it really was the farthest thing from my mind. I just wanted to make sure that people who were fans of comedy knew that I had a special out there, no matter what ilk they are. That was really the intention. Because I got into stuff that I've been talking about a long time, about the political situation within comedy, that would just happen. It wasn't like that was my agenda. I didn't want to talk that shit to Howie Mandel. I barely wanted to be on Howie's show.
And that does come across.
Sure. But it was like, I know how to have fun.
Yeah.
But he was, spouting his mouth off in sort of a boomery, shallow, kind of insulated way that I thought was, way off the mark. And so I didn't engage, fun Mark, because it became not fun very quickly, and it became serious, and he didn't have much to say.
Yeah. Let's talk about politics, because you have been going off
already.
Well, it's just what I put. It's just what I put on the top of the card. We can edit however.
No.
We don't have to follow this.
I'm kidding. Just do what you.
No, you're kidding.
Do what you got to do.
He's kidding. So in your special, which is great.
Yeah, thank you.
Which is great. You say it's your best.
I think so.
I like your last two. I think they're both your best.
End Times Fun, Bleak to Dark.
Yeah.
And this one, it's kind of a trilogy.
Yeah.
Panicked. Yeah. Well, there was a structure and intention there that I think over the three, I kind of was able to focus and shape a little differently. I think there is an evolution.
Well, one of the things you say in the special is that liberals annoyed average Americans into fascism, and that we have a buzzkill problem. Now, a lot of the buzzkills listening to this are going to take issue with that. But what is the buzzkill problem? Like, what is it?
Well, it was sort of interesting, even how I framed that section of the material, like how that evolved. Because it seems that over the last, I think most of my specials, I speak to politics and culture, in a specific way, because I think I should. I think it's my responsibility. And over time, I, especially in this last episode, I figured out a way to what I felt was finessing it, because the situation culturally and politically for this special was different than the other ones. And some sort of strange empathy kind of evolved in terms of my presentation. So I'll explain to you. I'll answer the question. But in my last special, like Bleak to Dark, where I talked about Christian fascism, it was sort of like I had some swagger to it. I was laying something down. I wasn't really exploring it. It was sort of a heads up in a fairly cocky way, in what you would say probably what it looks like as alpha dogging. In the special before that, I did a fairly operatic closing bit with Mike Pence blowing Jesus, which is a specific sort of homage to a comic that had an impact on me. In this special,
you gave him a blowjob.
Yeah. Well, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
No, it was more like as I get older, I realize what my influences are, and I realize what part they play in certain bits. Like I can kind of identify it. So I see it that way. I see that like I would not have been inspired to navigate this joke without, Hicks. So that's that. But in this special, because I started doing it after the election, or maybe a little leading up to it, I found that at the audiences, in the theater audiences, that there was a frightened, desperate, angry vibe, which was, justified and real and despairing. And so over time of building the material, I realized that I was sort of doing some sort of community service in a real sense, that, these are, liberals, Democrats, Democratic liberals, whatever to the left of center, that these people were showing up. I don't know their lives. I don't know how long they're sitting at home alone on the phone. I don't know what they're doing. But I did know they were scared, and I knew I was in the same boat. So I figured out a way. I made a decision this special to speak directly to them, not just posture as one of us, but to say, look, I'll do this for you. We're all in the same boat. We all have flaws. There's funny things about us. I don't have any answers for you, but I can give you that kind of relief of sort of taking pokes at who we are.
Yeah.
And that joke, and I think it's a problem now too with comics and comedy. When I do comedy, when I say we annoyed the average American into fascism, that's a joke.
Yeah, it's a joke.
But it resonates, and it resonates for a reason, because I've also lately been exploring the difference between anger and hate. That, anger as a tone in all its spectrum is not always entertaining. And, self-righteous anger is about the most intolerable anger. Yeah, and even if you believe what the person is saying, you want them to shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
So that joke, and to answer your question, I think we know what these things are. And I don't know that there's a way around it. I mean, that's going to take some sort of amazing vulnerability and empathy in the face of a completely unsympathetic and terrifying force to make it not annoying. But I mean, I think that's sort of what's at stake.
Yeah, it's funny because...
Did that make sense?
Yes, it does make sense. Well, it's even when I was thinking about what I wanted to talk to you about, I know when I say, you in the special joke about America having a buzzkill problem, annoying people into fascism, that people are going to say, well, that's not fair. It's obviously more complicated than that, but that's why it's a joke.
Is it? But see, and I say it in the special that, in terms of a real organized left, when was the last time we had that? And look, I did Air America. I know what it's like to deal with different factions of the left, and even within, the Democrats trying to figure out how to platform the left, right? And I know that there's very insulated, very committed groups of people to very specific things that are all part of this big umbrella idea. But there is no unifying policy. There is no unifying community. There is no, it's not as simple in terms of what it's become as what Bernie preaches, the original American left, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you have all that fragmentation, what becomes annoying is people's commitment to their specific cause. As righteous as it may be, it doesn't fit into the umbrella of the community necessarily. It does not have that much significance on its own. I mean, some issues do. So it almost becomes, I don't want to use the word virtue signaling, but there is a sort of righteousness. And I get the whole idea is like pick an issue and you work it. But bigger problems abound.
Yeah. Well, so my take on it is we do have a problem of being buzzkills. That the Americans do have a very dim view of Democrats. And Americans do find Democrats annoying. Why is that? One reason, they're kind of annoying. That's true. Another is, yes, there's like a kind of a collective sense of loss and righteous anger and uncertainty around the fact that that's even more extreme this time, because at least in 2017, you could say, oh, half the country didn't vote for this. It's a fluke. He won the electoral vote, not the popular vote, but we lived through it and the country embraced it. And he won a majority this time, which makes it even more kind of enraging and insecure poking kind of experience for the left. But there's also a big right-wing apparatus that exists to take all these things and the most annoying liberal and make them famous. There is...
Yeah, they turn it around.
And then there's social media that takes the most annoying bits of things.
Sure.
You make a joke in your special about Theo Von. It's very funny. It's a great joke. It is everywhere. It is everywhere. That gets pulled out, right? And it gets spread because it's great material. It's very funny. It's resonant. But it's not surprising that the more thoughtful and circumspect parts of the special, it's not surprising that those parts aren't what's online. What's online is the bit.
Well, there's a bit about
that's sensational.
The R word and the Theo Von thing. A couple of the smaller ones did okay out there, but yeah, there's a lot in the special. And I had to think about what that Theo Von joke would do, because there's this idea, there's a talking point within the right-wing, tribalized comedy community that any sort of criticism is some sort of jealousy, which it isn't. And I had this issue years ago before this type of stuff. If you're going to be critical through humor of people in your own profession, there's always this sort of stigma to it. But I believe that if somebody becomes a cultural phenomenon and they are part of the cultural apparatus, that they're fair game.
Yeah.
And I think the Theo joke at its base is funny. What it implies, you can do whatever you want with that. Sure, it's an easy correlation to make to Trump or to humanizing fascism, but in and of itself, the impression was good enough. The jokes that I put within him talking were funny.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd be hard pressed to think that he didn't think it was funny.
It's really funny. It's good. But my point is only that, like,
sure, the apparatus it's impossible to fight against, and that's a whole other problem, that the left messaging is never going to be as efficient because we don't have an army of frustrated teenage boys who have been taught over the last 20 years that this is all some sort of game and that trolling is a pastime. And they were sort of turned out and radicalized by, Bannon and it just, the apparatus, it feeds itself, and people who are doing it are not ideological thinkers or deep guys. They just are in it for the game.
Yeah, but that's what I mean about it going further than just the left being annoying.
Of course,
but it's also there. You look at in the past.
I'm talking on a human level.
On a human level. But when countries have embraced right-wing fascistic leaders, right? Germany, the economy is in shambles. Millions of men were in World War I. Their brains are all fucked up. There's no word for it. The only advice is for everyone to whisper, right? Like, there's nothing. And they embrace this autocrat. America had a lot of problems in 2016. We had a lot of problems in 2024, more than we had before. But we don't have let's try autocracy problems. But there's something about this era, whether it's social media or what's happened in the economy, that's led people to feel this, like, loss of meaning, loss of purpose, loss of order. And they're casting out. And Donald Trump had purchased with a lot of those people. A lot of the people, turns out, were excited about someone like Donald Trump their whole lives. We just didn't know it, which is very frightening. But there was a lot of people that were just receptive to someone like Donald Trump in a way that I think was very surprising. It was surprising to me. I don't know if it was surprising to you.
Look, anger and the excitement of being validated and having your grievances honored, despite any sort of human connection to them. I think it's appealing to angry people, and the people that weren't angry were annoyed, and they may be untethered. They may not have any real sense of civic responsibility or even the structure of government. They just knew that it felt good to be able to double down on hate and to double down on othering and to double down on bullying. I think most people have an innate bully. I think that empathy is a muscle that you have to work. Yeah. And at some point, the Democrats were okay at that. But I don't think most people are naturally empathetic. I used to think that. But I also think that a lot of this propaganda you're talking about and the sort of intensity of what we're taking in on a day-to-day level creates the mental relationship with the information, creates a kind of mania. I just watched a brilliant documentary this morning. I've watched all this guy's stuff. It's a guy, he calls himself Elephant Graveyard on YouTube. And it specifically focuses on the alignment of politics and comedy. He did one called The Comedy Czar about the Rogan sphere and the manosphere. And he did one just today it was called, I'll tell you, because I think they're important to watch because it's sort of the world that, I live in. It's called Comedy Jonestown, How Comedy Was Destroyed by an Anti-Reality Doomsday Cult. And I think that is a bigger conversation about what you're saying, that, the propaganda and the existence of social media platforms and what they can do to the human brain and what they can do to foment a sort of mania.
Yeah, mania is a good word for it.
That enables it. You hear it in people on these mics. And I used to do it. I used to do morning radio, and I knew what it took to get it up to do that. for 3 hours. You're up at 3 a.m, you're crunching news, we're doing comedy bits, you're live. So there was a mania to it. And if that mania has a specific ideological thrust that's driven by talking points and, basic debate exercises, it's rewarding and it lands and it makes you feel good. Mania makes you feel good.
Yeah, and it has sort of left, conservative radio, talk radio. It was in your car, and a lot of people listened to it. A lot of salesmen and truck drivers listened to it all day, every day. It was like kind of this secret audience for it. But you got out of your car and it stayed in the car, and you lived your life. And now that kind of frenetic pace follows us all the time. And I do think like you're going to look back on this era and you say, what happened? And we're going to look at the way in which we all kind of, whatever direction it was, we were all radicalizing each other through. Totally. Our phones.
But radicalizing in emotion.
Yeah.
That the information is fleeting and unfounded. But if it fits your emotional feeling, then just drive it. Yeah. And now it's everywhere. The guy in this new documentary, in the Doomsday Cult documentary, identifies something about collaborators that may not have seen themselves as being willing collaborators at the beginning, but they go through something called, I think he called it philosocide, which is where you don't kill yourself, but you kill yourself inside. And if you look at somebody like Mark Rubio or anybody within that administration, in what happens in cult-like behavior is some point after another, in order to stay in the game, they kill whatever principles they might have had, even though they were a few.
Yeah, they surrender to it. And there's also, I think, another part of this.
Killing it is probably better because that sort of supports the mania element. That you have to surrender, but you have to aggressively push it back.
Yeah.
Because you literally have to, your personality is in conflict with that until it's not.
Look, we're doing Germany, we're doing 1984, deal with it. But in 1984, it's about letting go. You're fighting against this tide, and all of a sudden just like, you know what? I'm just going to float.
But that's the rest of us. That's not the operatives. I mean, the operatives, they make a deal.
They make a deal.
I have had to, on some level, believe and accept, not in the way that I surrender to it, that we're currently in an authoritarian country. I have to see it that way in order to exist in my life. I have to frame it like that. I'm not saying that there's not hope, but I do think that what we're up against is something more than a two-party problem.
And I think this is where you get back to why did it happen now? And yes, it's the phones, but there's one way I think people rationalize it is around, well, I don't like Trump, but I really hate the fucking Democrats, right? Or I'm not totally on board with this, but both sides.
Yeah, but that's a false equivalency.
Of course it is. Of course it is. But what I see, there is a reason that Donald Trump gains purchase in this ecosystem of podcasts at the same time that a bunch of this anti-woke, anti-trans, masculinity core takes hold at the same time. And it has to do with there's some way in which a lot of men feel lost. And,
sure.
And there's order and meaning in what Trump offers,
sure.
in what kind of the Rogan kind of way of learning about the world.
Daddies are pretty powerful.
Yeah.
And, these docs that he talks a lot about the daddy hole in these guys, from bad daddies, that void that needs to be filled. And, a lot of megalomaniacal people come from that. Trump comes from that.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I'm no psychiatrist or psychologist, but in order for someone to define themselves, especially if they're lost or they feel neutered or diminished, if you get the right words into those people, they're going to light up. And if they feel like they have a leader, they're going to light up. And as opposed to I didn't like what the Democrats had to say or whatever, I think that is all part and parcel to the demonization of Democrats as being not having real policy or not being real men or not speaking to the working class. Because there's a couple of guys out there, and I don't follow as much as I used to, but it seems like there's a couple of guys out there that are rational, sort of level-headed, very wonky, democratic politicians that are totally inoffensive and really bright and are making it as simple as possible to understand what the real issues are. But I don't know if that's what it takes to get people on board. And then you got Newsom's approach, which is...
We're going to take a quick break. More of my conversation with Marc Maron in a minute.
Hey guys, it's Tommy Vitor. You can support the work we do here at Crooked Media by becoming a member of the Pod Save America YouTube channel. When you sign up, you get subscribers-only shows and ad-free episodes of Pod Save America, Pod Save the World, Offline, and Love It or Leave It. Plus, it's the most direct way to support us as we build a counterweight to the right-wing media. So click on the join option on the Pod Save America YouTube channel, and thank you for watching.
Today's presenting sponsor is Simply Safe Home Security. We talk a lot about transparency and fighting against shady deals. That's us.
That's right.
That's what we like about Simply Safe. No hidden fees, no long-term contracts, just highly effective, award-winning home security at a fair price. John Lovett installed the Simply Safe years ago, and we've been talking about it ever since.
Can't stop talking about it. It's a really great product. It works really well. Easy to set up. Once you set it up, the app is reliable and easy to use. The customer support is reliable. It's just a great security system you can count on. Highly recommend it.
Most security systems only take action after someone breaks in. That's too late. Simply Safe's new Active Guard outdoor protection helps stop break-ins before they happen. If someone's lurking, agents talk to them in real time, turn on spotlights, and can call the police, proactively deterring crime before it starts. Named Best Home Security System of 2025 by CNET, 4 million plus Americans trust Simply Safe. It's ranked #1 in customer service by Newsweek and USA Today. Monitoring plans start around $1 a day, 60-day money-back guarantee, no contracts, no hidden fees. Visit simplysafe.com/crooked to claim 50% off a new system with a professional monitoring plan and get your first month free. That's simplysafe.com/crooked. There's no safe like Simply Safe. Pod Save America is brought to you by Tommy John. Keeping your cool can be difficult with everything you're hearing on the news.
That's right.
Thankfully, Tommy John can provide cooling relief with underwear that feels like on-body AC thanks to lightweight, breathable, moisture-wicking fabrics that stop you from getting heated. That's right. You can deal with the news by getting better underwear.
That's for sure. It doesn't hurt.
Tommy John's proprietary fabrics are silky, soft, and luxurious. I know it's a good day when I have my Tommy Johns on. Feel confident all day long in underwear that are breathable, lightweight, and comfortable. Get the support you've been looking for with underwear that won't ride up. Tommy Johns are up to 4 times more stretch than competing brands, but they won't stretch out. Best of all, you can buy them risk-free with their money-back guarantee. Elevate your essentials with Tommy John today. What's one special thing about Tommy John? That we all wear the same underwear.
Yeah, we do. They're very comfortable. They're really well made. They're very breathable. I truly wear them every single day without exception. Highly recommend it. Highly recommend it. You know, treat yourself right around that area. You know, it's every day. It's every day.
Try to make sure that your big balls get a Medal of Freedom.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah. You know what? Your balls getting jacked. You know what I mean?
Grab 25% off your first order now at TommyJohn.com/crooked. Save 25% for a limited time at TommyJohn.com/crooked. TommyJohn.com/crooked. See site for details.
I do think we can that the collapse of society can be tied back to crowd work. I think we can get it back to crowd comedians that are just doing crowd work. In the same way, we could talk about how what goes viral, what spreads, what gets people's attention is conflict. It's anger.
Satisfying things.
Satisfying things.
Because cats do too, you know.
Right, sure. Yeah. The things that scratch some sort of a primitive itch in there.
Yeah, whether it's like sweet or sad.
Yeah, cats too. Yeah, a rescued puppy getting a growth removed will also get millions.
I can watch a pipe evacuate itself for a minute.
You ever see a video of someone pulling a tire through a pipe?
Oh, yeah. Great. It's the best.
I'll watch that all day.
I guess that's a kind of primal fecal thing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's something about the boom. Like that's deep in us.
What is? Oh yeah,
like the pneumatic tube. Boom.
Yeah,
that's good stuff.
One of the most primitively satisfying things.
You know, which is also the sound a person makes if they get sucked out of a plane.
Well, not something I want to watch, but
no. But I'm just saying it's sort of a noise.
Sure, yeah. Boom. It'd be a little more aggressive, like pop. It'd be like
right.
Pop. Yeah, and it'd be messy
and windy.
So
trans people. No.
Well, bring it back to crowd work is that they're, with all this othering and with all this sort of idea, this is one of their big debate points when you come at them. They accuse liberals of being closed-minded in terms of really embracing other people's point of view. And for me, if that other point of view is shut the fuck up.
I don't want to hear it. Yeah, right. Well, Look, I mean, so go on about the crowd work. Sorry.
I just think what happens is once the othering is successful, and I covered in the special that, real rights are denied and real lives are at stake because of, what comics thought was an anti-woke was just about their language issue. And now they were used under the sort of auspices of anti-woke. You destroy all the policy that helps people who are vulnerable or marginalized or in trouble. And I can't separate them. I will remain committed to the fact that they did that comics helped that. But I think in the bigger picture with, say, crowd work or the kind of, hackneyed tropes of tribalized comedy is what ultimately happens. And I said this to Howie and with all the proliferations of podcasts is that because the production values are shitty, mm-hmm. and everybody knows them now, and because crowd work is kind of established as this way of lighting kind of having an improvisational moment. What happens to all the stuff that is really good and truly creative and interesting is that the bar gets lowered to the point where regular people just adapt to the garbage, and they don't seek out the other stuff, and the sort of outlets that make the other stuff are kind of marginalized. Mainstream show business is kind of marginalized. So all this stuff fits into that anti-elitism kind of frame of right-wing thinking.
Yeah, and it does. It's about taste too, which is that this stuff performs well. It does well in the world, for good and for ill. All the gatekeepers are gone, right? Like that, you can kind of build an audience online. That's good. A lot of amazing people have started online. Human connection was a limited resource, whether it was through art or through having to go somewhere to meet a friend. Like you didn't know who was fat until you went to the high school reunion, right? You didn't know what happened to people in your lives, so you saw them at a party. The party had real meaning, because you connected there.
That's it.
And all of this took out the availability of all this, removed the meaning of liking a comic, discovering someone, going to a club and seeing someone's hilarious, telling your friends about
people with researched and respected opinions.
Right.
So I look, and I did a joke that was turned inside out by one particular kind of libertarian thinker. I don't even want to give him that. He's a comic. But I said it was better when everybody didn't have a voice. It's a joke.
Yeah, it's a joke.
But it's the same thing as saying like everyone's got a podcast now. Mm-hmm. But I just said it like that. So I left myself open to like, that guy, see, the liberals are, they're totalitarian.
Well, it's everybody, they cancel culture, anti-woke comedy. It was about feeling like there's feedback that they didn't want to hear anymore. But I also like being a celebrity got worse too, which is why I think it was able to spread so far, right? Like because if you were famous in the 1950s, you could do coke, get drunk, drive your car through a plate glass window, give $200 to the maitre d' at the hotel, and it was gone. Now, like James Corden gets into a fight pulling a suitcase down from the overhead, and it's news, and it follows him forever. There's a way in which attention, celebrity, and feedback have made having the power of a platform less fun, and I think that annoys very powerful people.
It's predatory.
Yeah.
Well, they have to insulate themselves, but I do still think that outside of just the kind of emaciated world of press and this chasing of clickbait, I do think in terms of the ideological bend on it is that it's anti-elitism, it's anti-intellectualism, it's anti-expert. I think it's all part of that.
Yeah.
I think that Hollywood has been framed as elitists. I think that not unlike with the universities, and the intellectual thing was always part of fascism. But I think that Hollywood represents elitism to the right. And I don't believe that's true. I mean, movie stars are movie stars, but I really think that's where a lot of that comes from outside of just clickbaity stuff.
Yeah. And then there's also just a big audience for it, right? Like there is, it turns out, an audience for.
Yeah, but that doesn't make it right. Like,
no, of course not.
I think that.
What does that tell us about the people listening? That they wanted this.
Well, but most people, like, so what do you got? 75 million vote for Kamala, 77.5, vote for Trump. And there's 150 people who did what? What are they doing? Who are those people? Are they just floating? Are they the ones that's watching? It's a lot of people.
Yeah.
What are they doing? So I think that in terms of how fascism or authoritarianism, like, we've got a president who is a thug. So, his way of doing business is like, oh, you got a pretty nice university here. Hate for anything bad to happen to it. Like, hey, it's a nice state. No, hate for anything bad to happen to it. Maybe you kick into the charity. Yeah, it's straight up mob shit. But but like people like Let's Vote. I mean, that's the guy that's doing it.
Yeah.
So like, however you see Trump, he's still a puppet to something that is bigger, that he doesn't give a shit about, as long as he can be the guy out front. But those guys are the guys that are dismantling the federal government in the name of Christian nationalism. But I think that the way that business, see, what you're saying to me feels like that, fascism is good for business.
Yeah.
Because if you, like Netflix will just, co-opt anybody that can take that algorithm. And I think I used to do a joke about it. Netflix can become Reichflix, very quickly. And I think the pivotal moment was when they had pushback from the trans community about Chappelle. They realized after several days that community was not going to affect their bottom line at all.
Yeah.
And they cut them loose. And, that is how fascism works in business.
Right. Well, right. When their argument and response would be, well, we believe in being a home for everybody. So there's Chappelle, there's Ricky Gervais, there's all these kinds of comics that do the same fucking joke. And we have a bunch of gay movies and films and queer stuff. And like, we're a home for everybody. And that's our answer.
Sure. But ultimately, who's getting the big deals? Which shows stay on the air?
Yeah.
What do they keep repeating? It's like the bigger audience. That's them saying, like, we got this other stuff and we know there's a few of you, but we're throwing you a bone. So shut up. Yeah. But the big money's on the ones that you're talking about that titillate in a certain way that is not always right-minded. And look, I'm people can say whatever they want.
Yeah.
Like, my belief is that eventually this stuff would have found its level. That ultimately, in terms of, left-leaning or specific marginalized cultures, creating grassroots action, by overwhelming Twitter and stuff, that when Trump was campaigning for the second time, that was ebbing, that it would have found a level where tolerance would have maybe reigned. Because, like, I believe that in order for democracy to work, if these guys are doubling down on intolerance and hate, that you got nothing to work with. I mean, it used to be like, you'd get a guy who'd be like, yeah, gay marriage, now the gays, they want to get married. It's ridiculous. Fuck the gays. And then it passes in his state. And over time, he's like, I don't know. I work with a guy. They're nice. And then it evolves in the way that democracy is supposed to work. But I think it should always be said that what these guys are fighting for is not democracy. And they're shameless about it. They can say that, democracy enabled us to vote for that guy, but that was the fucking end of it. And that's the loophole in democracy, is that you can freely elect a fascist. And then who the hell knows what's going to happen, right? But I do feel that they are shamelessly anti-American in their political ideology. And I imagine most of them would own it. Sorry.
No,
it's good. We're going to win. We're going to win.
No, I'm glad let's talk about it.
2026, everything's going to turn around, you guys.
Well, we can do that. Oh, we're so fucked. I will say, like, the hope, right, too, is like, this is hacky shit, right? A lot of this, like, anti-woke comedy is like hacky shit. And the way you beat that, you can scold people. I'm not saying you're doing it, but people on social media can try to scold their way to the other side of it. But the answer is to just be fucking funny. And the answer is to have a bit about Theo Von that people really like and sort of turns something on in their brain.
It's subjective.
That makes it silly to them.
Sure. Right. But it's not going to make it silly to the guys that are brain fucked in that direction. It's not going to make it silly to the believers. And the problem with, like, comedians as news influencers is that now anything any comic says is a representation of their personal ideology. So the ability for them to be objective about humor is gone. And they are subjective, which most humor is, to a specific ideological bent. And sure, you can make it as funny as you want. There's plenty of beautifully funny people doing amazing comedy all the time, but they're in the shadow of this momentum of the tribalized comedy of Rogan. And again, those documentaries, which I highly recommend, from Elephant Graveyard, Rogan has positioned himself as the arbiter of what comedy is. And the way I framed it in my conversation with Howie was like, how long can you kind of claim the victim mantle?
Right.
It's like, my question is, it's like, you guys won. Woke is dead. What do you got to keep beating these people up for? Some of them are losing their rights. Some of them are being, literally killed. Some of them are being deported. And these were all the big funnies for you guys who claim to be victims of this horrible policy. So then why not stop now?
Well, but also part of it is, but then also there's this sort of, well, we're just comedians. We're just telling jokes here. And then it's like, well, hold on a second. You can't.
They're not.
You can't have the president on in the run up to an election and give that person a forum, Trump, and not push back. You can't get behind him. And then when you don't like the consequences, say like, well, I don't like any of this immigration stuff, but I'm just a comedian. I just had him on. He was a guest.
Yeah, but
I
still,
heard what he had to
I can't
say.
forgive it. I can't forgive it.
Don't think you should.
And it's like, in the sense that, like, well, you should have done your fucking homework, before you come out and say this is the guy to your army of kind of minions who look to you for intellectual fortitude and the proper diet and, what is real and what isn't real. So in a sense, it's like they're going to backpedal, and they're going to backpedal in relation to what's kind of like moving through MAGA in general. And I don't know that it matters. I mean,
I think it does matter. Oh, I think it does matter.
No, I mean, I don't know that it matters. Oh, if MAGA buckles, they have to accommodate them?
I think we have to be practical. And I can't go back in time and make people not endorse Trump, but people with big platforms realizing that they were, look, is a decadent and depraved era in American politics and American society. And part of that is a glibness with very serious things. You have Zelensky in the Oval. He's getting questions about putting on a suit. His country is being murdered by Vladimir Putin. He's getting jokey questions. Donald Trump is showing him his fucking hat collection. This is a depraved and decadent era. Also, and as part of that decadence, there are people being glib about life and death decisions, including endorsing a monster because it's good for the gram. And that happened. How do we help? Now that there's a good side to that, which is there's a shallowness to that support and that embrace, which means, yes, we can say that was stupid. I don't forgive you. Fine. But we got to get those people to realize we got to make ourselves feel open to them, because those people with those platforms are maybe gettable, as are the kind of soft Trump voters that maybe got on board because all their favorite hosts liked him.
I'll agree with you with that.
Okay.
But I think you're taking out of the picture, they're afraid. They're in, man. Yeah. And they're in over their head. And, there's real consequences when you push back against your authoritarian overlords. And who the hell knows what they are? Because once you get above Russ Vought, I mean, you've got the tech oligarchs, all right? So they're the real ones, whoever's, pawned out, Vance is a stooge for those guys, for Elon and Theo and those guys. Mm-hmm. So once you get above Project 2025 and you get above Trump, then you've got these guys who really seek to destroy the fabric of democratic society. Okay, so if you're on the payroll of that shit, and and you want to soften up, there's a lot at stake. So it's not just sort of, well, we got to say the right thing to these people and change their minds, because you don't think Scott Rubio is shitting his pants every fucking day? I mean, you don't think like any judge that rules against him is getting like hundreds and hundreds of death threats? I mean, this is straight up, terrorizing shit. So, I know we were heading towards hope somehow, but.
And we don't need to. Let's turn around.
No, but I think that in terms of voters and whatnot, if they are still capable of empathy, underneath this mania of grievance validation, then in so much to say as if they're still human, that maybe something will speak to them.
Well, I think that's where there is genuine hope.
Yeah.
Trump has many powers, talents. One of them is he is very good at making what's the worst thing about you the truest thing about you. He's very good at that. He's very good at kind of reaching into somebody and saying, this thing, this weakness you have, I'm going to make that more true. Whether it's animus towards immigrants or embracing their ambition over their politics if it's a politician. But one reason I think Trump was able to get back is because there was a big hole, and I everybody listening will be annoyed at my saying it, but whatever. But the bully pulpit, Joe Biden, he left it open. And we didn't understand how big of a price we were paying for not having a vocal, aggressive, relentless advocate for democracy, for just empathy, which is something Joe Biden, I think, is very good at, but had lost his ability to communicate well. And if we can start getting leaders and influencers, it matters now, it's the world we live in, to kind of reflect those values more, suddenly a lot of people that were open to Trump might remember some good parts of themselves. Because I think people are complicated. And you're right, in every person there's a bully, but in every person there's always an empathetic part of them as well. Donald Trump does a crackdown on immigration, terrible crackdown. And what happens for the support for immigration, just itself plummets. As a good, rises.
Anti-immigration.
Anti-immigration sentiment plummets. Support for immigration itself, irrespective of the policy, rises to 80%, highest it's been in decades. There's something that you can turn on in people. That's what leadership is, and we need that. It's been absent. I think it's possible.
No, I agree with that. I mean, of course, and like historically, it happens.
Yeah,
you can push back, and you can change people's minds if the sadness, the weight of it. But like, what happens to I've become sort of obsessed with this idea of these angry white dudes that you were talking about that were untethered, and many of them the whole sort of angle of Democrats used to be like, they're voting against their self-interest. That used to be the big thing.
Yeah.
How does that happen? Because it feels good to be angry. And
well, you can't tell people what their interests are is one thing,
I guess, but I'm just economic.
Yeah.
Right. So, but now it's like, I don't want to get more grim. I'll stick with, yes, maybe people. Well, you get all these angry dudes. I mean, and then you offer them, I mean, South Park covered it, the second one. Mm-hmm. Offer them a job in ICE.
Yeah. As
non-officer guys with guns for big money. And that, again, then you get into that philosophy thing where they kill part of themselves to serve this because of their self-interest. And I guess that ties into me with what you're saying about influencers and about that. If you can get, them out from under their self-interest, which sometimes is just posturing for a particular cause that determines their brand sort of appeal, but is rooted in almost nothing. I mean, how do you make
momentum becomes momentum almost?
Well, it just becomes like you're using it as a marker to sort of determine your brand. Everyone is stuck in honoring the context of the social media platform, right? So arguably, if you really want to do it, there's no free speech. Because you're trying to get onto this platform and get traction with what you have to say in the bits and pieces that you can do it and make it appealing to enough people to get you some sort of recognition so you can get your grift going or move money into the right direction.
And subscribe to our YouTube.
But
it was one of those fake laughs, I think.
But also there's a difference between this hyper reality and just sort of like, going swimming. So I just think that it's complicated without a unified message. Entering the political part of this last special, days before, I changed the tone of how I was going to do it. Because like I said, with that, alpha doggy or whatever thing, that like with the swagger, which is either genuine or just a means for me to confidently, a trick to deliver it. I decided in this one, just go under it. Almost be passive about it. Like, hey, everything's great. Everything, and then move from that tone, because I believed in the spirit of what you're doing here, that if I do it like that, people who aren't necessarily like-minded will listen.
Yeah.
And I did some of these shows. I had a guy come up to me in like Skokie or somewhere, and I did all that stuff. And he came up to me and said, I think I'm probably the only Trump supporter in here. And I said, did I get it right? And he said, yeah, man, he's crazy. Like, what do you even do with that?
I do think that's, well, I think it gets at something important, which is, I feel like a lot of liberals, and it gets to the kind of buzzkill thing, a lot of liberals have kind of had convinced themselves that if only we can reach people with the truth, they just don't have the facts. And once they have the facts, we got to get them the facts. We got to make sure the New York Times headlines are accurate, that they capture things correctly. Because if people had the facts, they really knew who Trump was, then they wouldn't do it. But no, a lot of people got behind Trump knowing who he was. And that's a harder, deeper, sadder problem. And that, I think that is where we're at now. I think the first term was, oh, we just have to reach people to make them understand. Now it's, wait. They did understand. They did this anyway. This is a bigger problem than we realized.
You have to, like you said, have a leader that believes in liberal democracy.
Yeah.
And can speak to why it's good. Even with, creating policy that may, undermine businesses, maybe, creating policy for the benefit of all. You have to somehow re-engage people with the idea that they have a civic responsibility for those who don't have.
And it has to deliver. It has to deliver for people. Because I do think
that's right.
That people have come to believe that it just doesn't matter, that Democrats, they overpromise and they underdeliver if they deliver at all. And really, the federal government just doesn't affect me. And
that's a wealth problem.
It's a wealth problem. I think it's also this is a kind of cultural problem right now, which is the assumption that as things that how things were is how they will be, that there are certain things you can count on, right? Like you can just, the Trump is crazy, but Social Security is going to function. And Trump is crazy, but like he's not going to ruin the whole global economy by announcing tariffs for penguins. Like there's that I think a lot of people learn from the first term that things don't really get that bad.
Yeah, but that was before they had 2025 in place.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Of course.
And they, all they had was Bannon and, his mystical beliefs, churning out executive orders. But now you have guys that really know all the fucking weak spots of the government who are churning out executive orders.
And they had 4 years to prepare.
Totally.
And second-term presidents always know the job better than first-term presidents. They rarely get 4 years to be outside so that the policy people, the wonks, can get their plan together. But also, that's what's so different.
Sure. But also, how do you get the young people that identify with liberal democratic or leftist politics, to focus on getting involved in being involved in the government?
And well, I think this is where it's like, what brings all these disparate groups together? What makes people see themselves as part of one movement? Leadership, and we didn't have it. And Democrats didn't have enough trust with non-Democrats to believe the threats, to believe what we were saying about what Trump posed. And Democrats didn't have enough purchase with less engaged lefties to earn their vote and to believe that they could be trusted either, to kind of get people excited. And Kamala did a lot to try to fix the damage that Biden had left, but there wasn't enough time. We'll be right back with more of my conversation with Marc Maron. But first, if you want to know how America's most powerful villains really operate, check out This Fucking Guy. It's the YouTube series from Hysteria hosts Aaron Ryan and Alyssa Mastromonaco, where they take on the worst people in politics, business, and beyond. Their latest episode, Peter Thiel, tech billionaire, political puppet master, and a man who's been shaping American politics from the shadows. Watch the newest episode on YouTube or listen on Spotify. Just search for This Fucking Guy.
Pod Save America is brought to you by Mint Mobile. You know what doesn't belong in your epic summer plans? Getting burned by your old wireless bill. While you're planning beach trips, barbecues, and 3-day weekends, your wireless bill should be the last thing holding you back. That's why so many people are making the switch to Mint Mobile.
So many.
With Mint, you can get the coverage and speed you're used to, but for way less money. And for a limited time, Mint Mobile's offering 3 months of unlimited premium wireless service for $15 a month. So while your friends are sweating over data overages and surprise charges, you'll be chilling, literally and financially, but not literally. Say bye to your overpriced wireless plans, jaw-dropping monthly bills, and unexpected overages. Mint Mobile is here to rescue you. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all your existing contacts. Ditch overpriced wireless and get 3 months of unlimited service from Mint Mobile for $15 a month. Crooked Media's own Nina switched to Mint Mobile last year. She says she can get crystal clear service and the data speeds are excellent. Best of all, she's paying a fraction of what she was paying on her old plan with one of the big wireless companies. Poof, is Nina happy? She can't stop talking about it. This year, skip breaking a sweat and breaking the bank. Get this new customer offer and your 3-month unlimited wireless plan for just $15 a month at mintmobile.com/crooked. That's mintmobile.com/crooked. Upfront payment of $45 required, equivalent to $15 a month. Limited time new customer offer for first 3 months only. Speeds may slow above 35 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details. Pod Save America is brought to you by Acorns. Acorns makes it easy to start investing like an expert, even if you're an expert at something else. Acorns is the financial wellness app that helps you invest for your future, save for tomorrow, and spend smarter today. Acorns makes it easy to start doing more with your money. In fact, you can start automatically investing with just your spare change. You don't need to be a finance whiz. Acorns puts your money into an expert-built portfolio to make sure you're investing wisely, not wildly. Plus, Acorns can support your money goals in life, a new car, a first home, investing for your kids, saving up for retirement, and so much more. Acorns even has a checking account that automatically invests for you and an emergency fund that grows your money, and it's all in one easy-to-use app. The app is great. It's super important to invest. You don't have to have like a ton of money to invest. In fact, Acorns, encourage you to just sort of put a little bit away here and there, and then basically it does the investing for you, and you can watch your money grow over time. It's a really cool app, and it's really helpful. Sign up now, and Acorns will boost your new account with a $5 bonus investment. Join the over 14 million all-time customers who've already saved and invested over $25 billion with Acorns. Head to acorns.com/crooked or download the Acorns app to get started. Paid non-client endorsement. Compensation provides incentive to positively promote Acorns. Tier 2 compensation provided. Investing involves risk. Acorns Advisors, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. View important disclosures at acorns.com/crooked.
So Theo Von, Dax Shepard, is there something about being a recovered addict that makes you good at hosting a podcast and having conversation?
Well, I cite it as a foundational thing, the sort of idea of the seed of AA thought is that one alcoholic talks to another alcoholic about their life and gets out of themselves. So on that premise, maybe. And I just feel also that if you have some experience in recovery, you're very used to people being very candid about showing their emotions and vulnerabilities and telling their stories of the most horrible things. It's just part of the community and part of how it works. So on that level, maybe.
Yeah. There's a lot of people that are miserable and hate their lives, and they're not brave enough to fix it. And they're also not brave enough to do drugs. It takes a little bit of courage, I think, to ruin your life with drugs. You've joked about that too in the past. Bravery is just a kind of recklessness that we like. It's recklessness with a good direction. I
don't know if they see it as bravery. I think they're out of control, and if they survive, they can frame it. But, I don't. My joke was I don't trust anybody who hasn't lost complete control of their life for a few years.
But all I'm getting at is there's a kind of a willingness to say fuck it. Right? There's a fuck it quality, and I think that
sometimes it's a compulsion more than a willingness.
Well, maybe at some point it started as I'm furious, I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm whatever.
Oh yeah.
I'm going to throw this back and change my circumstances. But there's a vulnerability to it too. I feel like in the addicts, the people that I know that have had addiction,
once they've gotten out of it,
Well, once they've gotten out,
because the hole is open.
The hole is open, but also I do think that there's a pain, right? I think that comes from a vulnerability, and that continues after you've beaten it. But I think is part of what makes you a good host, right? You are open, right?
And I'm pretty my empathy is sort of expanded from doing it, and also I'm kind of innately kind of codependent in that I assume that anyone I'm talking to has their shit together more than me, and I kind of meld with them. And I kind of pick up their vibe. And there's certain times where I'll ask Brendan McDonald, my producer, I'm like, did I start talking like an old Jew when I was talking to Mel Brooks? He's like, yeah. And did I start talking a little bit like a black guy when I was talking to a black guy? Happens.
Yeah,
but
you mirror. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's me. Yeah, I don't know how they do it.
I don't know how they do it either. Yeah, there's something about that you kind of match somebody's energy. Are we doing that? I think so.
A little.
Yeah.
You're a little guarded.
You think?
A little bit. It's okay.
I think I am. Well, I can bring it down.
No, you don't have to. It's your show. You got to drive.
I don't even know how to be. I don't even know what's the guard. What should I take down? What do you think it is?
I think you have purpose, I think that we're all scared, but you have to sort of keep it together for the operation.
I think that's true locally and globally. I think I want to make sure I know you as a performer, and I want to make sure we don't land in the fucking grave.
Yeah.
You know, I want to be out of it by the end.
I think,
but I also want to. Yeah. So I think that's right.
Well, I think that if you watch the special, that I do walk a tightrope, but it definitely it comes out funny, and it took a lot of time to do that.
Yeah. And they're always 70 minutes or so, huh?
No. Most people are doing like 35-minute specials.
Yeah. Yours is long.
Because it's like, that's what I came up in. I'm old school.
Yeah.
It's like you do an hour. That's the job. And to do a HBO hour, that was a big deal when I was a kid and starting out as a comic. But now people just self-produce. They get Netflix to throw it on. It's 35 minutes, 40 minutes. That's like a strong middle set.
You're going to do the hour. Get it the full hour.
I do. And then it's always like 73. And I got it in my head last time because I fought for that. You know, I said, look, because when I enter those things from the road, you know, a few weeks before, I'm usually dealing with an hour 45 that I got to get down to 60 some odd minutes. And I told my manager, I said, can we go over the hour? And they're like, they don't want to. And I said, I'm looking at 73 minutes because the last special was 73. And it's a weird number. But what was interesting to me in terms of my whatever craft I have is that over the weeks leading up to the special, I started to take out redundancies. I started to find through lines. I added that line about annoying the average American into fascism. That happened like 3 days before I taped. That wasn't in the set. It just came. Mm-hmm. And I keep it fluid so I can write on. That's how I generate stuff. A couple things happened that last week. But I got it down and I had it in my mind. It was 73 minutes. And we did 2 tapings that night in New York. And without looking at a clock, they both landed at 73 minutes. And that's crazy. Like the internal clock is crazy. Some of that is from radio, but some of that is also just from knowing. I don't know how to explain it, but I guess I've definitely put in my 10,000 hours.
No, you've definitely done that. You've definitely done that. I went like, I remember you in the Conan days. Like I remember watching you on Conan.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have known you were on drugs and drinking that, like when you were in that.
Well, I wasn't like sloppy, you know, and a lot of times I didn't do it the day of those shows. You know, I don't think, a lot of people think I was on coke for that HBO half hour at the Fillmore in 95. I was just sweaty. I don't think I was on coke. I do know on my first Comedy Central half hour, I had done coke the night before and I didn't sleep well, but I wasn't getting jacked to work.
You weren't.
No.
Yeah, because even now, like I forget when I'm thinking about, like, I don't sort you into the category of, oh, guys that did a lot of drinking and coke, because you strike me as a nerd. You're like a nerdy guy, kind of contained, Jewish. Like I think of you like that. And even when I think of you from the Conan days, I think of you as being like not a party guy. I think of you being like a record guy.
Yeah, I think I was like, I kind of rode a line. You know, I grew up in, towny culture in Albuquerque, but I was from Jersey and I was very compelled towards, higher pursuits. I wanted to really be an intellectual, but I do have at some point, a rock and roll element. I was never really a nerd. I was more of an awkward person, unfocused. I think nerds are awkward, focused people, and they can find community in that. I was just an uncomfortable guy that knew how to be funny and sort of move through all different cliques, but it was never that focused. And I kind of took to, and still do to, a kind of rock and roll sensibility. So it's that combination of that with pretty, I think, I don't like using the word, but neurotic, anxious Jewishness. So it's kind of a hybrid. I think that Randy Newman once told Lorne Michaels many years ago, and Lorne told Jim Biederman, who was producing me on a show for Broadway Video. It was a streaming show that it was before streaming, though. But Randy said I was a verbescent, which is a sourpuss.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm okay with that. I was a cranky guy, but I didn't know quite how to make it funny. I don't think I have the real cranky guys who are naturally funny. It's a rare thing, like Lewis Black is good at that.
Yeah.
I think, Burr at sometimes just this sort of put upon, kind of anger that doesn't cross over into intense anger, which isn't fundamentally entertaining, which is where I would go. I think
Yeah.
over time I've become a little more cranky funny.
That's interesting. Why is that? And I think part of it is for whatever reason, like there's a way in which with like Bill Burr, Louis Black, you're rooting for them, even when they're
Populist crank.
Yeah, they're populist, and
I'm a heady guy.
Yeah.
I'm more of a poet in terms of
Yeah.
how my brain processes things.
It never rhymed though. That's a shame.
No,
but
it's all free verse.
Yeah.
Occasionally there's a rhyme, but I take them right out.
You do. There's a way in which now, I don't know, you seem more like comfortable as a performer, as a stand-up, which is amazing how you've been doing it for such a long time. Was it like, I know that like when I was in politics, I remember when I got a job as a speechwriter, like I have several chips on my shoulder. A couple of them are still there, but I've seen them fall off. Like when I've had milestones, like and you say you can't get that outside validation can't really change how you feel. I don't think that's true. I think it absolutely can.
Totally.
Do you think for you, success was it financial success, acclaim? Did those things matter in how you are on stage? Did it make you feel comfortable, safer, freer? What?
I think that, and I've said it before, that for a long time, or however long it takes, your comic's job is to pretend like they're not afraid, and then eventually the fear will leave you. And that's sort of a big day. And I think in terms of success, just the fact that I was able to build an audience of grown-up people mostly thinky, creative, disgruntled, people. I kind of talk about it in the special. I worry about alienating them, but there's also some part of me that wants to a little. But I think that once I got an audience and I had a freedom of mind that I knew would be received, that it did help my comedy. And I guess that's success. But ultimately, I have been working a long time at this. And I think along with that fearlessness, especially in this special, was it's the only special where beforehand I didn't let my brain undermine me for dumb shit. There's some part of my brain that prepares that way. I've got to find something to make me uncomfortable. And it just didn't happen. And I was more grounded in this special than I ever have been because I had purpose. Like I always kind of do, but I had a different purpose, both to my audience, to the way I thought about culture and politics, and also to the risks I wanted to take around personal things. Like a long time ago, I really set out to not talk about anything that wasn't from my point of view because I could own that and no one could take it. And anytime that I'd see similar things, I'd have to sort of like go, well, is it that similar? I'll just lose it. I want it to be mine. So the risks I took in the last two bits around trauma and around grief it took a long time to work those out. So I just feel like that I have a confidence in how I do what I do that is much more grounded than it's ever been. But yeah, validation is still too important to me.
Is it?
Yeah.
Who do you want it from?
I don't know. My parents.
Oh.
It's always about the parents.
So, yeah.
I mean, because like if you don't have a voice in yourself that you've evolved because of being, emotionally, manipulated one way or the other in a negative way by, your early experiences, it's hard to have a voice in your head that says good job.
And you don't have that even now.
No, I do, but I still I know it. But then when other people don't know it as much as I do, it makes me upset.
Yeah.
Like I know that I'm doing the best work I can. But this special was, the last two were very well received critically by people who are smart in the sense of like people who assess things not as a reviewer, but as a critic. And people got what I was trying to do. And many of them have watched me do it for 25 years. So when I'm assessed by people who I respect intellectually, even if there's a few bad things in there, I'm thrilled about it.
In their part, I find that a lot of times when I'm seeking validation, it is in the periods where I am doing work that I think is pretty good, but not hitting what I was in some way or another, like not hitting exactly what I had hoped to hit, right? But then I'll do a show and I'll think, that was what I wanted to do. that was really great.
Yeah.
And I want people to agree, but I don't need it as much when I feel certain.
Yeah, I guess like with this one, the stuff that like I felt like it was really the best work that I've done in terms of from like the risks were different. The last special was about grief, and at least 20, 25 minutes.
Yeah.
And this one was back to sort of almost a 3-act structure, where, I do the political, cultural stuff. Then I tell them I want to just be entertaining, and I do that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I get into personal stuff. But I do feel like the stuff that I thought needed to get out there in terms of not the stuff, like you said before, there's a lot of stuff in this special that goes, undiscussed. That's gnarly shit and deep shit. But, the stuff that landed, I'm okay with because I felt like it was not being said, in a way that was like no one can deny my skill set. So as a comic, if I'm going to take on what's going on in comedy in relation to culture and I do it in a funny way, then I've achieved something because a lot of comics are scared to talk about it. They're afraid of audiences. And, you just got to really get that ratio into your head. It was, 75 million to 77.5 million. Not every room is full of monsters, and certainly not in LA. And that there has to be you have to have the guts to be a stand-up and say what you want to say. Again, it's dicey when you sort of take on people in your world, but when it reflects on the world at large in a negative way, I think it's ripe. But to the point, like I felt good about it. I articulated it well, and going into it, I was 100% confident in the set, and I feel good about it. And I'm fortunate in that it was received very well, which is not always the case.
So I guess technically you're cusp, but I think of you as like a quintessential Gen X.
Yeah, I think so.
Comic.
Last year boomers, so it's
you're right there.
Yeah.
You're right, but Gen X energy all the way through.
Sure,
it's right there with the kind of in the sort of.
There's probably a little too much Led Zeppelin in me to be fully Gen X, but but
you can grunge it up a little, I suppose.
Sure, I did. Yeah, it was later though.
Later, you went through your grunge.
The groundwork had been laid by acts from the 70s. So.
But why did we have had a bunch of baby boomer presidents?
I'm not running.
No, and first of all, thank you.
Yeah.
That's one less thing to fucking worry about. Imagine that. Oh, that'd be annoying. But just you heckling Democrats back at you. What a disaster.
I don't know. Gavin's doing that.
Yeah. I think he's more suited to it, honestly, than you.
Oh, yeah, he wants it pretty bad. I can't I know what it's like to think you are speaking your truth and to be completely saturated in talking points that you don't know anymore. I mean, I did Air America for a year every morning, and you realize like, I didn't think this.
I don't remember your show being that talking pointsy.
No, it's not, but it's the tone.
Yeah.
That you're honoring a narrative.
We seem to have skipped over Gen X in terms of presidents. And there's a sort of a gap in terms of even our representation. We went right from a lot of boomer members of Congress. There's obviously Gen Xers in there, but we went right from the boomers to the millennials as well. Why is it that Gen X hasn't really shown up? They've also moved to the right more than millennials have. What happened with, what was something about your generation that kind of had this sort of...
I think it was probably the beginning of that sort of self-centered entitlement and need to define yourself in a unique way that was based on, music, fashion, bits and pieces of, esoteric wisdom from old books and whatnot. I think it was probably, the boomers are selfish in a different way, because they built the world, and now as they were looking down the tunnel of death, they kind of want to end it.
Only buried in their pyramids.
Well, I think there's a part of narcissism that it's like, if the world ends at the same time they do, they don't miss anything. And I think Gen X is probably guilty of a kind of the beginning of like a terminal uniqueness on an individual level, and not so hip to, real civic community.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. I'm really spitballing. I don't really think in terms of generations that much. I do know that the boomers need to get out of the way.
Well, I think of like there's a group, I think of there's the sort of the Gen X comics. Jon Stewart's in there. You're in there. Bill Maher is in that group, I think.
He's a little older.
Is he a little older? But
I think he's kind of solid boomer.
You think? Is he older?
Yeah, he's got to be close to 70. Somebody.
Let's get a Bill Maher
your
age check.
producer work.
69. Nice.
69, yeah.
Nice. Famously 69. Oh, right. We talked to him about it. I had him on.
That's pretty solid boomer shit.
Yeah, you're right. I take that back.
But Janine,
Mhm.
John, sure. Some of the other Gen Xers, Patton, and then there's a bunch of other, younger guys. The alt comedy scene, for whatever it did, was mostly Gen Xers and some millennials, I guess.
Yeah.
And they kind of, again, it was an insulated community that was based a lot in kind of snark. And, snark doesn't age well because it doesn't run that deep.
Yeah, and there's something about it too that's snark. You have to be on the outside, and you have to not want to be on the inside.
Well, that's
right?
your answer right there.
Yeah, I think that's it. There's something about Gen X that was like, you know what? We're just we'll be back here.
Yeah.
We'll be back here with our zines.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
I think it was a mistake. I think you should have gotten in the ring with us.
I'm the last boomer. Don't blame me.
Yeah, you're right. Okay. You're right. I take that back. So you're a catastrophizer. I was thinking about this because I went back and I watched parts of the special from Bleak to Dark,
Mhm.
Dark to Bleak, Bleak and Dark,
Bleak to dark.
Bleak to Dark. And I'm a catastrophizer as well. So if I'm on the phone with my fiance, I'm engaged. Second time this one's going to take. But
How long you been engaged?
like 6 months.
Okay.
6 months.
You're
Planning the
still-
wedding.
Good. Oh, good.
Yeah, we're planning the wedding.
It's not like a 6-year
No.
engagement. Yeah.
The last one, we didn't plan the wedding. And I think that was a sign.
This is second marriage?
Second engagement.
Second. Okay.
There was no first marriage.
Okay.
I made a lot of changes when I turned 40.
Uh-huh.
A lot of changes.
Yeah? Like what?
I was no longer engaged once I was 40.
Yeah.
I actually never was single in my 30s.
Yeah.
I was single when I was 29. I met somebody. And then the next time I was single, I was 40. So I forgot to be single in my 30s. And
yet you did it again.
well, if I thought it was going to be like when I was in my 20s. It is not.
No.
When you're in your
A
40s.
little more work.
Yes. Yes. You can't get my dunk
Yeah.
gone.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a dunk.
Yeah. The game starts to fade.
It's not like when I was in my 20s.
Sure.
I was.
Yeah. You felt like you had it
I
all
wasn't.
going on.
I wasn't guessing the right card.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I never knew what card people had.
Yeah. I never
You
did
know?
either.
Is this your card? Never right.
Yeah.
Never right.
Yeah.
And now I'm 40.
Yeah. But you look good. Yeah.
I'm okay. I'm
yeah,
working on doing
good.
Pilates. Do you Pilates?
No, I do. I do like kind of a full body
Massage.
flexibility workout, and then I
Mm.
run a few days a week.
You run?
This morning I did. Yeah.
Where do you run?
I do a hike out in Glendale sometimes, and then other times I just do intervals on the treadmill at Equinox.
Okay.
I like Equinox.
Okay.
I'm an elitist.
That's nice.
Yeah,
I do Pilates.
that's
also do
good. I've
running.
done
I do
I've done
running.
Pilates. You do it on the machine. Or
Yeah, you
just
got to do it on the
classes?
machine.
I don't feel the benefits as much. I used to do yoga a lot, and I felt like the benefits in terms of core. Like I know there's something to having your core engaged.
So that you stay
that
upright.
changed. Yeah,
Because I know you're worried about it too. You're worried
I'm
about the
slouchy,
slouch.
yeah.
You got to worry about the slouch.
But
which is a core thing.
The Pilates machines don't satisfy me on an endorphin level or on a muscle level.
You seem to be aging well. I think comedians age well.
Oh, that is not true.
Not physically, they become ghouls. But I'm saying that mentally, some of the great comedians that try to stay curious.
You're gonna have to give me an example.
Well, I think comedians that have tried to stay kind of sharp and curious about the world. I think you're one of them. There's got to be a couple more.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a faulty premise, but you said it confidently.
I think that. Well, look, I think Seinfeld is somebody that's keep trying to do new material, and I do you can like or dislike what Seinfeld does.
Oh yeah,
but
I
even
can.
you can. But even great. But even the other day, he gave some answer about woke stuff, and it got some blowback, and he actually came back and he said, you know what, I was wrong about that, and he actually gave a really good answer. He thought about it. He came back and he said, you know what, what I said was stupid, and actually. if the goalposts move, I should hit the goalpost. That's my job.
Sure.
And I thought that was cool.
I think that what happened with Jerry ultimately is that he was really a guy that didn't speak much publicly. And then, not just because of the advent of podcasting and the needs of the new publicity environment, all of a sudden Jerry was never shutting up. So everybody saw Jerry for Jerry, and you do with that what you will.
Okay, I'll do with it what I will.
I'm glad he apologized, and you feel good about that.
Who else? Let's see. Let's do some more beefs. What do you think about Bill Maher?
I can't do it. I can't. I don't. Tone. I always had a problem with his tone. I think I did politically correct years ago.
Yeah, I'm sure you did.
A couple of times maybe,
Yeah.
And I think I did real time maybe once or twice.
Uh-huh.
But
That's when you were dating Ann Coulter at the time.
Oh yeah, that was a dark time.
Mm-hmm.
I tried to help her. She's lost cause. I couldn't do it. There's nothing I could do.
Yeah.
With all my years of experience in and out of bed that could help her.
Okay.
So, no, I don't know. Like, I feel with Bill that there is this, and it happens with some of the other boomers, there's this desperate chasing of relevance that, changes someone's mind in terms of how they approach what they do, and also kind of makes the whole undertaking feel desperate. And, outside of, his ideas about primarily, I think, wokeness, I don't know. It's just not for me. I know his joke he's got good joke writers who know how to write for his tone. And I've known a couple of those guys. They were comics and they're good guys, but I can't see past, the desperation and what he's willing to do to stay in the conversation.
And what do you think about the death of Late Show's gone, Conan Show's obviously gone.
Yeah,
it's coming undone. This place that I know, I'm sure for you, was this pinnacle of where comics went, what comedy was. It was from Carson to Letterman to Conan.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
I think it's just the nature of what we talked about before, is that if the bar has been lowered to consuming only clips, which is dictated by media platforms, that this whole idea of algorithms and what people's attention span can and can't do it's sort of I don't know if it's a catch-22, but it's like, even with any streamer you work on, it's like, well, our algorithm says people can't pay attention for this long. And I'm like, but not my people. And if you keep promoting that, they won't. I mean, if something is good, they'll stay in it. I guess the format and the nature of show business has just again shifted to entrepreneurs and media bubbles that are self-driven by individuals or tribal entities, and that the whole framing of show business being this, it's the talk show, here come the celebrities. It's just, people don't care anymore, and they're all chasing clicks on for clips of having interesting people do dumb shit.
And we're going to bring those pies in a second. But
oh, God damn it. I knew there was a big closer.
No, I want to end with this. It's a serious question, and it's where I was going to before. But look, when I'm on the phone with Ari and the phone cuts out, I think they're dead. I just assume the building has collapsed. Truly, earthquake, a 9/11. Truly, if they're in New York, I think a 9/11 has happened. I really go there.
Yeah. Takes a lot to adjust to the text just ending without a bye.
Right.
It's just like the last thing said is just hanging there. There's, Fahim Anwar?
No.
So funny. He's a very funny younger comic, and he just does this this dating. He was texting with somebody he met on a dating app, and he was he didn't know whether he was being ghosted or not, or no. He made a joke. She said something, and he just texted the dancing emoji, and nothing. That was all that was left. That was the last thing he said.
Forever.
Yeah, exactly.
Forever. There's no way to end a text conversation. It's a terrible medium. But it's actually social media.
I'm very curt with text.
Me too. We don't think of texting as social media. It's a form of social media because it's an impression of talking to somebody. You're not actually talking to somebody, but that we can't talk about that anymore. We have no time for this. Here's my question for you, which is, you're a catastrophizer. You've done it your whole life. And, you've been through a terrible loss. Your plane hit the mountain.
Yeah.
Did it change how you view catastrophe? Does it change how you allow your mind to create catastrophe all the time?
No, what it changed was my sense of mortality. It did not change. Like, it doesn't, tragic loss of somebody you love, that's not my go-to catastrophe. I didn't see that coming at all. I mean, my parents are both still alive, It's not great, but I didn't see what happened to Lynn. There was no way I could have ever seen that coming. So, when somebody dies tragically, all the other catastrophizing about me and cancer or, what someone's going to say about me or the world or the fires or anything else, when somebody dies, it does make me more scared in relationship because it's happened. But it also sort of makes you realize just how fragile it all is and how there is no real kind of universal order to it. And, there's no way to answer the question why. And that's just life. So it didn't diminish my catastrophizing, but it did make me realize how fragile life is.
And I think
Too
we're
heavy
not,
for an answer?
No, I just think now we're ready to start. Let's record.
Oh, good.
Let's
Finally.
get the things
Jesus,
going.
We got warmed up.
And
About time.
now we're in it.
Yeah, good.
Marc Maron, good to have you.
Thank you. Nice
Thank
to
you.
be here.
Good to see you.
Good
That was
to see
great.
you.
And that's all for today. Thank you to Marc Maron for stopping by. We'll be back in your podcast feeds on Tuesday with a new episode from me, John, and Tommy. Have a great rest of your weekend, or if it's Monday, I don't know, eat shit.